The Veltar Empire's response was swift and brutal. Within 72 hours of humanity's revelation, over 3,000 Veltar warships began moving toward Earth and its allied systems. It was the largest military mobilization in galactic history, designed to crush the growing rebellion before it could spread further. Warmaster Grektul, now free from human captivity after a prisoner exchange, commanded the massive fleet from his new flagship. His scarred face burned with humiliation and rage as he addressed his officers. "The humans think their tricks make them invincible," he snarled. "They defeated one small fleet and believe they can challenge the entire empire. Today we show them the true meaning of power." But the Veltar weren't just targeting Earth. Their strategic plan called for simultaneous attacks on every world that had revealed hidden technology. The Kethvar colonies, the Zendai trading posts, the Mortax exploration bases, all would be destroyed to send a message to the galaxy. Supreme Admiral Dongwook Kim stood in the hidden command center beneath Earth's surface, watching displays that showed enemy fleet movements across a dozen star systems. For 50 years, Earth had prepared for this exact scenario. Now all their planning would be put to the test. "Admiral," reported Captain Ju-Hyun Choi from her position at the tactical display, "the Veltar are dividing their forces. Main battle group is heading for Earth, but they're sending smaller fleets to attack our allies." "Expected," Admiral Kim replied calmly. "They want to isolate us by destroying our support." "Are our defense networks ready?" "All hidden installations are online and waiting for activation codes." Around the galaxy, the true scope of Earth's preparations began to reveal itself. Mining asteroids suddenly extended weapons platforms. Research stations deployed shield generators that could protect entire star systems. What had appeared to be simple orbital facilities transformed into fortress networks that had been disguised for decades. Colonel Yunsu Park commanded the ground defense forces on Earth's primary military moon base. Her soldiers wore powered armor that made each individual warrior equivalent to a main battle tank. But more than their equipment, it was their training and determination that made them formidable. "Remember," she told her troops as they prepared for the coming battle, "we're not just fighting for Earth. We're fighting for every species that has been oppressed by the Empire's idea of peace. Every innocent life they've taken, every world they've destroyed. Today we make them pay for all of it." The first sign that this war would be different came when the Veltar fleet reached the outer edge of Earth's system. Instead of finding a few primitive defensive satellites, they encountered something impossible. Space itself seemed to come alive. Hidden throughout the system, humanity had placed millions of tiny automated defense platforms. Each one was no bigger than a fighter craft, but together they formed a network that could coordinate attacks with perfect precision. The Veltar found themselves facing not ships, but an entire star system that had been turned into a weapon. "Impossible readings," reported the Veltar fleet sensor officer. "There are weapons platforms everywhere. Our computers count over 2 million distinct targets." Admiral Kim watched from Earth as the battle began. "Activate all defensive systems. Let them see what 50 years of preparation looks like." The space around Earth erupted in coordinated fire as the automated defense network engaged the Veltar fleet. But this was just the beginning. As the enemy ships pushed deeper into the system, larger installations revealed themselves. What the Veltar had thought were natural asteroids opened like flowers, exposing massive weapon systems inside. Orbital platforms that had masqueraded as communication satellites deployed shields and particle cannons. Even Earth's moons revealed hidden military installations that had been built into their very structure. But the most shocking revelation came when Earth's true fleet finally showed itself. Ships began emerging from hidden bases throughout the system, not dozens but hundreds, not the primitive vessels the galaxy expected, but sleek advanced warships that moved like living things. Each one incorporated technology that seemed to bend the laws of physics. Captain Min Ho Bai's ship, the UES Guardian, led a squadron that demonstrated humanity's mastery of three-dimensional warfare. His vessels could move in ways that confused enemy targeting systems, striking from impossible angles before disappearing into what appeared to be empty space. "All ships, execute Pattern 7, Captain Bay commanded. "Show them what happens when you threaten innocent people." The Guardian's weapons were unlike anything the Veltar had faced. Instead of simple energy beams, They fired concentrated space distortions that could tear apart enemy ships at the molecular level. The technology was so advanced that Veltar scientists couldn't even understand how it worked. Meanwhile, the battle wasn't limited to Earth's system. Throughout the galaxy, the Veltar Empire discovered that their enemies had been planning for this war much longer than anyone realized. On the Kethvar homeworld, the gentle agricultural people revealed their greatest secret. The plants they had been growing for centuries weren't just food crops. They were living components of a planetary defense system that had taken generations to grow. Elder Kithara stood in the center of what had appeared to be a simple farm village as massive organic structures erupted from the ground around her. The Kethvar had learned to grow their technology instead of building it, creating ships and weapons that were literally alive. The seeds were planted long ago, she said as her people's bioships took flight to meet the attacking Veltar fleet. We are gardeners, but we have always known that some weeds must be removed for the garden to flourish. The Kethvar bioships were beautiful and terrifying. They moved with the grace of living creatures, adapting their strategies in real time as they learned from each enemy attack. Their weapons were biological, but no less deadly for it. Veltar ships found their hulls being dissolved by organic acids or their systems invaded by technological viruses. Admiral Hai Wan Jung, commanding Earth's expeditionary force, watched in amazement as the Kethvar fleet worked alongside human ships in perfect coordination. I've never seen anything like it, she told her staff. Their ships are learning our tactics in real time and adapting to complement them. It's like fighting alongside a living entity. But the most significant development came when other species throughout the galaxy began revealing their own hidden capabilities. The careful network of alliances that Earth had built over decades suddenly showed its true strength. The Zendai trading vessels transformed into mobile factories that could produce new ships during battle. The Mortax exploration craft revealed themselves as advanced scout units with sensor capabilities that could track enemy movements across multiple star systems. The Varani medical ships deployed healing technology that could repair damaged vessels in minutes. Dr. Young-Soo Lee, Earth's chief technological officer, coordinated the Alliance fleet from his command ship in orbit around Earth. As he watched the displays showing coordinated attacks across dozens of star systems, he felt both pride and sadness. 50 years of secrecy and preparation, he said to his staff, all leading to this moment. I just wish it hadn't taken a war to bring everyone together. The tide of battle began to turn when the Alliance forces demonstrated something the Veltar had never faced. Perfect coordination between dozens of different species and technologies. Human ships provided heavy firepower and shield support. Kethvar bioships adapted to enemy tactics and provided healing for damaged vessels. Zendai mobile factories kept everyone supplied with ammunition and replacement parts. Warmaster Grechtel found his massive fleet being systematically dismantled by an enemy that seemed to anticipate his every move. His traditional tactics, which had conquered dozens of worlds, were useless against opponents who had spent decades studying Veltar methods. How are they coordinating so perfectly? He demanded from his bridge. Dozens of species, hundreds of ships, and they move like a single organism. The answer came from an unexpected source. Captain Do-Hyun Lee, whose ship had started the war by rescuing Dr. Kim, opened a communication channel to the Veltar flagship. Warmaster, he said calmly, you're facing something your empire has never encountered before. You're fighting people who chose to work together instead of conquering each other. As the battle raged across multiple star systems, it became clear that this was more than just a military conflict. It was a fundamental clash between two different ideas of how civilization should work. The Veltar Empire represented the old way. Rule through fear, maintain order through oppression, and destroy anyone who threatened the established hierarchy. The Alliance represented something new, cooperation between equals, protection of the innocent, and the idea that strength should be used to help others rather than dominate them. When the final phase of the battle began, the outcome was no longer in doubt. The question was not whether the Alliance would win, but what kind of galaxy would emerge from the ashes of the old order. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was unlike anything in the organization's 1,000-year history. Representatives from hundreds of species filled the Great Chamber, all talking at once in dozens of different languages. The topic was the same in every conversation: How had humanity hidden such incredible military power? Chancellor Vextar called for order, but his voice shook with barely controlled fear. Like everyone else in the galaxy, he was struggling to understand what had just happened. The species they had dismissed as primitive newcomers had just destroyed one of the galaxy's most feared military forces in less than 5 hours. Ambassador Kyung-ho Park sat calmly in the human section, no longer pretending to be confused or intimidated. For the first time in 15 years, he could be himself. The relief was enormous, but so was the danger. Every species in the galaxy now saw Earth as either a potential ally or a deadly threat. Ambassador Park, Chancellor Vextar said, his voice carefully controlled. The Council demands an explanation. How long has Earth possessed such advanced military technology? Park stood slowly, looking around the chamber at faces filled with fear, anger, and suspicion. These were the same beings who had ignored his pleas for help just days before. Now they hung on his every word. Honored Chancellor, he began in perfect galactic common, no longer using the broken speech he had faked for so long. Earth has possessed advanced technology for approximately 2 centuries. The chamber erupted in shocked voices. 2 centuries meant humanity had been advanced when they first made contact with galactic civilization. Everything had been a lie. You deceived us, accused Ambassador Zethik of the Romulan Trade Federation. You pretended to be primitive while building weapons that could destroy us all. Park's expression remained calm. We studied your history, Ambassador. In the past 500 years, how many newly contacted species have survived more than 50 years after demonstrating advanced technology? The chamber fell silent. Everyone knew the answer, but no one wanted to say it out loud. 17 species showed rapid technological advancement after contact, Park continued. All 17 were destroyed by preemptive defensive actions from established empires. We learned that revealing strength too early meant extinction. Dr. Sang-Ho Kim, Earth's chief xenosociologist, joined the session through a secure transmission from Earth. His elderly face appeared on screens throughout the chamber as he began presenting classified files that humanity had kept secret for decades. We have been observing galactic civilization since 2387, Dr. Kim explained. Our first contact was not an accident. We chose to reveal ourselves when we judged the time was right, but we also chose to appear weak to avoid triggering the fear response that had destroyed so many others. The files he shared showed detailed records of every species that had been eliminated for being too advanced to quickly. The Krental, whose crime had been developing faster than light communication. The Bithara, who had been destroyed for creating efficient energy weapons. The Zelnok, whose entire civilization had been wiped out because they built ships that were too fast. You were watching us, Chancellor Vextar said, his voice filled with growing horror. All this time you were studying us like laboratory animals. We were learning, Park replied. We wanted to understand how galactic civilization really worked before we committed to joining it. What we discovered was deeply troubling. The screens changed to show analysis of trade patterns, military actions, and political decisions spanning centuries. The picture that emerged was ugly. The Galactic Council existed mainly to protect the interests of powerful empires. Weaker species were exploited, ignored, or eliminated as convenient. The Council has systematically suppressed technological advancement, Dr. Kim continued. You have maintained stability by preventing change. Any species that threatened to upset the balance was removed. Ambassador Feltar of the Centauri Republic stood angrily. We maintain peace. The galaxy has been stable for centuries because of our actions. Stable for whom? Park asked quietly. The Veltar Empire has conquered 47 worlds in the past century. The Council took no action. The Kethvar were facing genocide. The Council refused to help. Your stability is built on the suffering of those too weak to defend themselves. As the debate continued, intelligence reports were arriving from across the galaxy that painted an even more shocking picture. Species that had appeared primitive or neutral for decades were suddenly revealing advanced technology. The careful masquerade that had hidden humanity's true strength had also concealed their allies. Intelligence analyst Min Jung Pak worked frantically at her station in Earth Command, tracking the revelations that were spreading across known space. What she discovered changed everything. Admiral Choi, she called out, you need to see this. We're getting reports from the Andromeda sector. The Kethvar colonies there just activated planetary defense systems that our intelligence said didn't exist. The main screen showed video from 3 different HFY worlds. Massive defensive installations were rising from what had appeared to be simple farming communities. The technology was clearly advanced, but it was also clearly not human. The weapons are biological, Minjung continued. The HFY have been developing living ships and organic defense systems. They've been hiding their capabilities just like we have. More reports flooded in. The quiet Zendai, who had appeared to be simple traders, were revealing industrial capabilities that rivaled the major empires. The peaceful Mortax had a hidden fleet of exploration vessels that had been mapping the galaxy for centuries. Admiral Choi realized what was happening. We weren't the only ones hiding. How many species have been pretending to be weak? The answer came from an unexpected source. Elder Kithara of the HFY requested an emergency transmission to both the Galactic Council and Earth Command. When her image appeared on screens across the galaxy, she looked very different from the simple farmer the galaxy thought she was. For too long, we have all hidden in fear, she said in perfect galactic common. The Council has created a system where showing strength means death. So the strong learned to appear weak, and the weak were left defenseless. She gestured, and the screen showed images of dozens of species throughout the galaxy. All of them were revealing hidden technologies, advanced ships, and military capabilities that no one had suspected. Humanity was not alone in its deception, Kithara continued. Many of us learned to hide our true abilities to survive in a galaxy that punishes advancement. But when Earth chose to risk everything to save innocent lives, they showed us a different path. Back in the council chamber, the revelations were causing panic among the representatives of the major empires. The careful balance of power they had maintained for centuries was crumbling before their eyes. How many of you have been lying to us? Demanded Ambassador Korvac of the Veltar Empire. How many species are actually more advanced than you pretended? The answers came slowly, but they kept coming. The Talnari had hidden terraforming technology. The Bektar possessed energy weapons that made current military hardware look primitive. The Varani had developed medical technology that could extend life by centuries. Chancellor Vexitar looked around the chamber with growing desperation. The entire structure of galactic civilization is based on lies. No, Ambassador Park said firmly. It's based on fear. Fear of change, fear of progress, fear of anyone who might be different or better. We all learned to hide because your system punished honesty. The Veltar representative stood angrily. This changes nothing. The Empire will not accept this humiliation. Our full fleet will crush every species that dared to deceive us. The chamber fell silent. Everyone knew that the Veltar Empire possessed the largest military force in the galaxy. If they chose to go to war against the revealed alliance of hidden civilizations, the conflict would dwarf anything in galactic history. Ambassador Park smiled calmly. War Master, you're welcome to try, but you should know that your full fleet is exactly what we've been preparing to face for the past 50 years. As if summoned by his words, reports began arriving of Veltar fleet movements throughout the galaxy. The Empire was mobilizing everything they had. Thousands of ships were converging from dozens of systems, but for the first time in galactic history, they would not be facing primitive opponents. The species they had dismissed as weak were revealing themselves to be anything but helpless. The galaxy was about to discover what happened when the oppressed finally decided to stop hiding. Captain Do-hyun Lee stood on the bridge of the UES Harmony as his ship raced through space toward the HFY colonies. Around the galaxy, millions of beings watched through long-range sensors as the small human vessel approached what looked like certain death. The Veltar Empire had positioned over 40 warships around the HFY system. Each one was 3 times larger than the Harmony, and carried enough weapons to destroy a small moon. Military experts across the galaxy agreed that the human ship would be destroyed within minutes of arriving. They were about to be very surprised. Captain, his communications officer reported, "We're receiving a transmission from the Veltar fleet. They're ordering us to turn back or be destroyed." "Put them through," Do-hyun said calmly. The main screen showed the scarred face of War Master Grektul, commander of the Veltar fleet. His reptilian features were twisted in what might have been amusement. "Little human," he hissed, "you fly to your death. Turn your primitive ship around and crawl back to your weak planet. We have no time to waste on insects." Do-hyun smiled. "War Master, I have a different suggestion. Surrender now and leave HFY space immediately. This is your only warning." Grektul's laughter sounded like grinding metal. You dare threaten the Veltar Empire with one tiny ship? Your species is even more stupid than we thought. We'll see about that, Do-hyun replied and closed the channel. He turned to his crew. They had trained for this moment for years. But now that it was here, he could see the tension on their faces. They were about to reveal humanity's greatest secret to the entire galaxy. All stations prepare for combat transformation, Do-hyun ordered. Across the ship, hidden systems came to life. The Harmony's outer hull began to change. Panels that had looked like battle damage slid away to reveal advanced weapon systems. The ship's engines, which had seemed old and weak, suddenly blazed with power that dwarfed most dreadnoughts. Most shocking of all, the ship itself began to grow. Hidden sections extended from the main hull, revealing that the Harmony was actually 3 times larger than it appeared. What had looked like a small diplomatic vessel was actually a battleship designed to fight entire fleets. On Galactic Council observation stations throughout the galaxy, scientists stared at their instruments in disbelief. The power readings from the human ship were impossible. Their computers insisted that such technology couldn't exist. War Master Grektool's amusement turned to confusion as his sensors showed the human ship transforming. What kind of trick is this? He got his answer when Do-hyun opened fire. The Harmony's main weapons were unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Instead of simple energy beams or projectiles, they fired streams of exotic matter that passed through shields as if they weren't there. Veltar ships that had been invincible for centuries found their defenses useless. The first Veltar destroyer exploded in a brilliant flash of light, then a second, then a third. But Do-hyun's ship was just the beginning. Space around the HFY system suddenly filled with new contacts as Earth's hidden fleet arrived. Ships materialized out of nowhere as their cloaking devices deactivated. The vessels that appeared were enormous, sleek, and obviously designed by a civilization far more advanced than anyone had imagined. Fleet Admiral Seokjin Ryu watched from the bridge of the UES Defender as his ships took formation around the Veltar fleet. For 50 years, these ships had remained hidden in deep space, waiting for the day when they might be needed. All ships you are authorized to engage, he announced. Save every HFY life you can. Show no mercy to anyone who threatens innocent people. The battle that followed lasted exactly 4 hours and 17 minutes. It would be remembered as the day the galaxy learned that appearances could be very deceiving. Human ships moved like living things, dancing between enemy fire with grace that seemed impossible for vessels so large. Their weapons struck with surgical precision, disabling Veltar ships without damaging the planets below. Lieutenant Commander Yoo-jin Seo led a squadron of Earth fighters toward the research station where Dr. Kim was trapped. Her ships were small and fast, but they carried enough firepower to destroy capital ships. More importantly, they were equipped with technology that could protect people from biological weapons. Station personnel, this is Lieutenant Commander Seo of the Earth Space Navy, she announced as her fighters approached the damaged research facility. We're here to get you out. Dr. Kim's voice came through the radio filled with amazement and relief. Earth Space Navy. But I thought we only had a few diplomatic ships. We've been keeping some secrets, Yoo-jin replied. Now hold on while we clear a path. Her fighters swept around the station using precise weapons fire to destroy the Veltar landing craft that had been preparing to storm the building. The alien soldiers inside never had a chance to react before their ships were reduced to harmless scrap metal. Meanwhile, larger Earth ships worked to save HFY colonies that were still under attack. Captain Minho Bay commanded the UES Protector, a massive vessel designed specifically for rescue operations. His ship could create protective fields around entire cities, shielding them from biological weapons while medical teams worked to treat the injured. We've got 50,000 HFY civilians on the planet's surface, his scanner operator reported. The biological contamination is spreading, but we can contain it if we act fast. Do it, Captain Bay ordered. I don't care if we have to reveal every piece of technology we have. Those people are under our protection. The Protector extended massive energy shields that covered half a continent, stopping the deadly biological weapons from spreading further. At the same time, the ship deployed thousands of medical drones that began treating HFY, who had been exposed to the toxins. It was technology that shouldn't have existed. The Galactic Council's best scientists insisted that such precise large-scale energy manipulation was impossible. Yet here it was, saving lives on a scale never before seen. War Master Grektul found himself facing Admiral Ryu's flagship directly. His massive dreadnought, which had conquered dozens of worlds, seemed small and primitive compared to the human vessel approaching him. "Impossible," he muttered, watching his weapons bounce harmlessly off the human ship's shields. "No species develops this fast. You were primitive savages just 50 years ago." Admiral Ryu's voice came through the communication system, calm and patient. "We were never primitive, War Master. We were careful. There's a difference. The Galactic Council will never allow this," Grektul screamed. "Every empire in the galaxy will unite to destroy you." "Maybe," Admiral Ryu replied. "But first you're going to stop killing innocent people." The human flagship fired once. The beam passed through the Veltar dreadnought's shields and struck the ship's weapon systems with perfect precision. Every gun on the massive vessel went dead instantly, but the crew remained unharmed. "Your choice, War Master," Admiral Ryu continued. "Surrender now and stand trial for war crimes, or watch us disable every ship in your fleet one by one." Across the battlefield, the same scene played out dozens of times. Human ships systematically disabled Veltar vessels without killing their crews. It was a display of both overwhelming power and remarkable restraint. Within 4 hours, the entire Veltar fleet was floating helplessly in space. Not a single human ship had been destroyed. More importantly, the Earth forces had managed to save over 2 million Kethvar civilians from certain death. As news of the battle spread across the galaxy, species that had dismissed humanity as backward primitives suddenly began to reconsider everything they thought they knew. On the Galactic Council station, Ambassador Kyung-ho Park watched the reaction of his fellow diplomats. Some looked terrified. Others seemed excited. All of them stared at him with new respect and fear. "Ambassador Park," Chancellor Vextar said carefully, "it seems your species has been modest about your capabilities." Park smiled for the first time in years. "We prefer to let our actions speak for themselves, Chancellor. And our actions say that we will protect innocent people, no matter what the cost." The age of humanity's hiding was over. Now the galaxy would learn what it meant to have Earth as either a friend or an enemy. Admiral So-Young Choi stood in the command center buried deep beneath the moon's surface. The room was filled with screens showing star maps, ship positions, and intelligence reports. For decades, this place had been Earth's greatest secret. Today, it might become the center of the galaxy's first real war in centuries. The latest reports from the Kethvar colonies made her sick. Commander Jae Sung-oh's stealth ship had been sending video feeds for the past 6 hours. Each one was worse than the last. "Admiral," called Lieutenant Yoo-jin Seo from her communication station. "We have another transmission from Dr. Kim's research station." The main screen showed Dr. Yoonji Kim's face. She looked exhausted and terrified. Behind her, other human scientists worked frantically to pack research data and equipment. "This is our final regular transmission," Dr. Kim said. "The Veltar fleet is moving toward our station. We estimate 6 hours before they arrive. The biological weapons they used on the Kethvar settlements have completely destroyed the local ecosystem. Nothing is left alive." She held up a datapad showing aerial photos of what had once been thriving Kethvar cities. Now they were empty wastelands where nothing moved. The Veltar weapons didn't just kill people, they poisoned the very ground so that nothing could ever live there again. "We've documented everything," Dr. Kim continued. "The evidence of their war crimes is overwhelming. But evidence doesn't matter if there's no one left to present it." Admiral Choi felt anger burning in her chest. The Kethvar had been such gentle people. They had welcomed human scientists with open arms, sharing their knowledge of agriculture and their beautiful art. In return, humans had helped them improve their farming methods and build better communication systems. The Kethvar had never hurt anyone. Their greatest weapons were farming tools. They spent their days growing food, creating art, and raising their young. They had trusted Earth to protect them from the dangers of the galaxy. General Tae Min-jung entered the command center with quick, angry steps. His uniform was perfectly neat, but his face showed the strain of the past several hours. "The president is still in meetings with the civilian leadership," he reported. "Director Nam keeps arguing that we need to maintain our cover. She thinks we can find a diplomatic solution." "What diplomatic solution?" Admiral Choi asked. "The Galactic Council has already refused to act. They're too afraid of the Veltar Empire to risk protecting anyone. That's what I told her. But she insists that revealing our true military capabilities will destabilize the entire galaxy. She thinks other species will unite against us if they realize how powerful we really are. Admiral Choi understood the concern. For 50 years, Earth had studied galactic politics. They had learned that the established empires always destroyed any new species that seemed too advanced. It was easier to crush a potential threat than to risk being replaced. But how could they stand by and watch genocide happen to people they had promised to protect? A new voice interrupted her thoughts. Admiral, this is Commander O. I'm sending you live footage from the Kethvar planet of green fields. The screen changed to show a view from space. The planet below had once been covered with vast farms and small cities. The Kethvar had been proud of their ability to grow food in perfect harmony with nature. Now huge sections of the planet glowed with a sickly yellow light. The Veltar biological weapons were spreading across the surface like a disease, killing everything they touched. They're not just conquering, Commander O's voice said. They're making sure nothing can ever live on these worlds again. This isn't war. It's the complete destruction of an entire species. Admiral Choi watched as the yellow glow spread across more of the planet. Soon, green fields would be nothing but a dead rock floating in space. The Kethvar who had lived there for thousands of years would be forgotten. Admiral, Lieutenant Seo called out. President Yoon is calling an emergency meeting. All senior staff are to report to the Situation Room immediately. 10 minutes later, Admiral Choi sat around a large table with Earth's top military and civilian leaders. President In Soo-yoon looked older than she had ever seen him. The weight of the decision he faced seemed to be crushing him. The situation is clear, General Young said, putting photos on the table. The Veltar Empire is committing genocide against the Kethvar. They've already destroyed 12 colonies and are moving toward more populated worlds. Director Hye-jin Nam, head of Earth Intelligence, shook her head. If we reveal our true military capabilities, every empire in the galaxy will see us as a threat. We could face attacks from dozens of different species, and if we don't act, Admiral Choi replied, we'll watch our friends die while hiding like cowards. What's the point of having all this military power if we're too afraid to use it to save innocent lives? Ambassador Kyung-ho Park joined the meeting through a secure communication link from the Galactic Council station. His usually calm face showed deep concern. I've spent the last 6 hours trying to convince the Council to intervene, he reported. They refuse to even consider it. Some members actually support what the Veltar are doing. They see the Kethvar as competition for agricultural exports. President Yoon slammed his hand on the table. They're talking about living beings like they're trade goods. That's how the galaxy works, Ambassador Park said sadly. Powerful species take what they want from weak ones. The Council only exists to make sure the established empires don't fight each other. They don't care about protecting anyone else. A priority message interrupted the meeting. Dr. Kim's face appeared on the main screen again, but this time she looked panicked. They're here, she shouted. Veltar ships just entered our system. We can see them approaching on our sensors. The camera shook as explosions began in the distance. Through a window behind Dr. Kim, they could see bright flashes in the sky as Veltar weapons fired on the research station's outer defenses. Dr. Woo Jin Kang is trying to evacuate the research data, Dr. Kim continued. But they're jamming our communications. This might be our last transmission. More explosions shook the building. Sparks flew from damaged equipment. Dr. Kim struggled to stay standing as the floor tilted beneath her feet. If anyone receives this message, she said, remember what happened here. Remember that the Kethvar were good people who deserved better. Remember that Earth promised to protect them. The transmission cut to static. The room fell silent. President Yoon stared at the empty screen for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was quiet but filled with steel. How long have we been preparing for this moment? He asked. 53 years. Admiral Choi answered. How long have we been building our hidden fleet? 53 years. How long have we been developing weapons that could protect innocent people from monsters like the Veltar? 53 years, Mr. President. President Yoon stood up slowly. Then what have we been waiting for? He looked around the table at each person present. I don't care what the political consequences are. I don't care if the whole galaxy turns against us. We made a promise to protect the Kethvar and we're going to keep it. He turned to Admiral Choi. Deploy the fleet. All of it, every ship we have, sir. That will reveal our true capabilities to the entire galaxy. Good. Maybe it's time the galaxy learned that some species actually keep their promises. Admiral Choi felt a surge of pride and relief. What are our rules of engagement? President Yoon's expression was grim but determined. Save every Kethvar you can. Destroy every Veltar ship that refuses to surrender, and make it clear to the galaxy that Earth will not stand by while innocent people are slaughtered. Yes, sir. As Admiral Choi left the meeting to prepare humanity's first real military action in galactic space, she felt both excitement and fear. Earth was about to show the galaxy what they could really do. The age of hiding was over. Ambassador Kyung-ho Park straightened his simple gray suit as he walked through the marble halls of the Galactic Council building. Other ambassadors barely looked at him. To them, he was just another representative from a backward planet that had only recently learned to travel between stars. This was exactly what Kyung-ho wanted them to think. He had been playing this role for 15 years now. Every day he pretended that Earth was weak and primitive. He spoke in broken galactic common, acted confused by advanced technology, and always seemed grateful for any small favor the Council gave to humanity. The truth was very different. Kyung-ho had 3 advanced degrees and could speak 12 languages perfectly. But if the other species knew how smart humans really were, they would see Earth as a threat. History had taught humanity that being seen as dangerous meant being destroyed. Captain Do-hyun Lee stood on the bridge of the UES Harmony, watching the stars through the main screen. His ship looked old and clunky from the outside. The hull was scratched and dented. The weapons appeared outdated. Even the crew wore simple uniforms that looked cheap, but appearances could be very deceiving. Hidden beneath the ugly exterior, the Harmony carried technology that could destroy most ships in the galaxy. Its computers were faster than anything the Council had ever seen. Its engines could outrun any pursuit. And Do-hyun himself was one of the finest military minds Earth had ever produced. The ship's communication officer turned to him. Captain, we have an urgent message coming in. It's encrypted with our highest security codes. Do-hyun nodded. Put it through to my private cabin, and make sure no one else can listen in. 5 minutes later, Do-hyun sat in his cabin watching a recording that made his blood run cold. The message came from Dr. Yoon-ji Kim, a scientist working on the planet New Sol in the outer rim of the galaxy. This is Dr. Kim, she said, her voice shaking with fear and anger. The Veltar Empire has attacked the Kethvar colonies. They're not just conquering them, they're killing everyone. The video showed scenes of horror that Do-hyun had never imagined. Veltar soldiers looking like giant lizards in heavy armor walked through peaceful Kethvar villages shooting anyone they saw. The Kethvar were a gentle people who looked like large rabbits. They had no weapons and no way to fight back. They're using biological weapons, Dr. Kim continued. The Kethvar are dying in terrible pain. Entire families are being wiped out. The children, her voice broke. The children are crying for help in the human words we taught them. Do-hyun watched as Kethvar young ones, no bigger than human toddlers, reached out toward the camera before Veltar weapons cut them down. These were people that Earth had promised to protect. They had trusted humans to keep them safe. The Galactic Council refuses to help, Dr. Kim said. They say the Kethvar are too primitive to matter. They won't risk making the Veltar angry over what they call worthless animals. Do-hyun turned off the recording and sat in silence for a long moment. Earth had spent decades building relationships with peaceful species like the Kethvar. They had shared knowledge, helped them grow food, and taught them about art and music. The Kethvar had become like family to many humans. Now they were being slaughtered. And Earth's careful disguise as a weak planet meant no one expected them to do anything about it. Do-hyun opened a secure channel to Earth Command. The face of Admiral So-young Choi appeared on his screen. Even in private, she looked tired and worried. You've seen the reports from New Sol? She asked. Yes, Admiral. It's worse than we feared. The Veltar aren't just conquering. They're committing genocide. Admiral Choi rubbed her forehead. The President is meeting with the Military Council right now. General Taemin Jung wants to send the fleet immediately. Director Hee Jin-nam thinks we should maintain our cover and work through back channels. Do-hyun knew the dilemma. For 50 years, Earth had hidden its true military strength. They had learned from studying galactic history that powerful new species were always destroyed by the established empires. The galaxy feared change and crushed anyone who might upset the balance of power, so humanity had played weak. They had built their real fleet in secret, far from prying eyes. They had developed weapons and shields that made their ships nearly invincible, but they had never used them in public. What about Ambassador Park? Do-hyun asked. Can he get the council to act? He's trying, but they won't listen. The council members profit from trade with the Veltar Empire. They don't want to risk losing money over a species they see as worthless. Another message came through the ship's communication system. This one was from Commander Jae-Sung-Oh, who commanded a stealth ship near Kethvar space. His voice was tight with barely controlled rage. The massacre is spreading. I count 17 Veltar warships systematically destroying every Kethvar settlement. They're not taking prisoners. They're not stealing resources. They're just killing for the pleasure of it. Du-hyun closed his eyes. He thought about Kithara, an elderly Kethvar who had taught him their traditional songs. He remembered young Pektal, who had been so excited to learn about human literature. Were they already dead? Were they suffering right now while he sat safely on his ship? Admiral Choi's voice brought him back to the present. Captain, prepare your ship for possible combat operations, but don't do anything until you get direct orders from the President. Understood, Admiral. But how long can we wait while innocent people die? I don't know, she said quietly. I honestly don't know. The next few hours felt like the longest in Do-hyun's life. He paced the bridge while his crew prepared for action. They had trained for this moment for years, but they had never thought it would come under such terrible circumstances. Finally, a priority message arrived from Earth. President In Soo-yoon appeared on the main screen, his face grave but determined. Citizens of Earth, he began. For 50 years we have hidden our true strength to protect ourselves and others from the fear and hatred of the galaxy. We have watched from the shadows as peaceful species were destroyed by empires that saw compassion as weakness. Du-hyun felt his heart racing. This was it, the moment everything would change. Today that ends, the President continued. The Kethvar are our friends and allies. They trusted us to protect them and we will not let them down. All Earth ships are authorized to drop their disguises and use whatever force is necessary to stop this genocide. The transmission ended, and Do-hyun turned to his crew. They looked back at him with grim determination. For 50 years they had pretended to be weak. Now it was time to show the galaxy what humanity could really do. All hands prepare for combat, Do-hyun announced. We're going to save our friends.